Hello, Contrarians, listeners, watchers, and subscribers. Here we are with the latest Contrarians warm-up. This is for the movie Things to Do in Denver When You Are Dead. A
This
little
is
bit
Andy
ago.
Garcia on the poster. I'm doing this right now.
Yes, just staring into your soul directly. There's two posters, Alex. There's that one, which is the one I was familiar with, and then there's the other one where it's still him mostly, but then in the background to the left, there's his love interest in the movie, and she's wrapped in a sheet.
Yes, I believe that is the
Director's
home
cut.
video. No, it's not a poster. That's like the VHS DVD. That's the box art.
Oh, okay.
That,
Well,
that
that's what
that's
shows up on Letterboxd when you
oh,
pull up
okay.
the movie. So I was like, that looks like fan made.
Well, it's not trivia, but it's one of the things I went through. Movies will have like photo galleries associated with them on IMDb.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was going to call out to anyone who's listening to this, that I highly encourage folks to browse the photo gallery for Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead on IMDb, because it begins with what I believe would be the premiere of it, the red carpet, and the photos are spellbinding. Like there's one of Tom Arnold in like a flannel shirt where he has the big baggy leather duster over it, like he's Bruce Springsteen, while wearing a Yankees cap. There's one of Beau Bridges in a flannel on top of a flannel. I'm just like scrolling through these right now. There's one of John Corbett, who's got like a leather jacket over like a rockabilly button up tucked into black slacks. It's and then Andy Garcia, of course, is wearing a suit that's 2 sizes too big for him there.
I mean, just to
David
be
Allen.
clear, other than Andy Garcia, these people are not in the movie. These are
No,
just
no.
people that showed
Yeah,
up at the premiere.
this is just something for you to find and scroll and understand that it used to be better. There's a picture of Lori Petty and David Allen Greer, just kind of, hey, we're here at Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Please tell me
And
Tarantino made it to the premiere.
I'm not seeing a picture of Tarantino.
Oh.
Watkins showed up looking flossy as hell, hair slicked back and everything, and of course Treat Williams looking like a true treat. No pun intended, but or excuse me, pun very much intended.
Yes.
But then yeah, a lot of it is the box art, and it cycles through the different like releases of it, and this might be the European release. It so very badly wants to be the Reservoir Dogs poster, and it's got a tagline on it that definitely was not anywhere else. They can die quickly, they can die slowly, but they must die.
Wow. I want to watch it again now.
So that's where I'll lead off. If you need something to sell you on this movie, just consult the IMDb photo gallery that's attached to it.
Yes, that's if you want something to sell you on this movie. If you want something to discourage you from watching it, then you can check out the quotes from Rotten Tomatoes, and in this case, what we're going to share is quotes from Letterboxd, because not a whole lot of quotes to pull from Rotten Tomatoes. It's a lot of dead links, a lot of people that just gave up after reviewing Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, or didn't even care to put a quote, so it's just a green splotch. But this is a rotten movie. Didn't do well.
37%, and with a 72% audience score, though, I don't remember if we actually brought that up in the episode.
No.
That it's comprised of over 10,000, submissions, and just watch a Tarantino movie instead, and buy a Warren Zevon record while you're at it, as Julio read off in the episode. But yeah, this is a movie that, as we chronicle in great detail in the episode, has just been lost to the sands of time, man. It was in the mid 90s hourglass, and it was one of those
that Miramax hourglass.
Yeah, and it was one of those pieces of sand that just kind of was inconsequential.
Yeah, well, I mean, until today. Today, you're listening to this. Somehow, you found yourself watching a video about Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Hopefully, this will lead into you listening to a full podcast episode about Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Or maybe you already did that and just came here for extra information. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get extra quotes, like I said, from Letterboxd, extra trivia, and the Josh Gad Minute. Josh Gad in Denver. We can make this happen. Yeah. It's a lot of characters. But let's start with those quotes, Alex. I just did the thing where I filtered. I said 2 stars or lower. That's what I want. And I got a few interesting ones. So we're going to start with Movie Genius, who watched it June 5th, 2018, gave it a 1.5 stars. and says, getting around to some titles that I almost rented 1,000 times on 1,000 trips to various movie rental joints during the Clinton era. And now I'm proud of my younger self for never spending $1.99 for 24 hours with this on VHS. $1.99 seems pretty cheap, but I mean, I didn't live here during the Clinton era. Is that accurate? Is that how much you spent for a 24-hour rental?
But 95, I don't know. I remember Video Connection in Waterville. Like there was like the new releases, which I think were like $3, and then things that were on the racks, like the in racks, like the things that lined the wall were the new releases, and then when you went into the middle, those were like 99 cents. You could get those, and a lot of those were like 7-day rentals. But yeah, I mean,
99
inflation.
cents for 7 days with Andy Garcia and Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. I think that's a bargain. He probably paid more in 2018. 2018, he probably paid $5 at least to rent this movie. So,
and video games were more. Sadly, there was not the video game adaptation of Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead for the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo.
Multiplayer,
yeah,
up to 4 people.
Fucking platformer. You're just Andy Garcia jumping and avoiding fucking bullets, and Christopher Walken in his wheelchair, just meh. But those ran higher. Those would be, I think you might have to pay like $5 for a few days. Weekend prices were different too. It was a much better time. We were a much better country, and
we really valued this sort of stuff.
I mean, I think you can honestly track the decline of society with the elimination of video rental stores.
That's why we have to protect that last Blockbuster, wherever it is. That's the last bastion of American happiness.
Even with Redbox, I remember in Denton where I went to school, like you went there on like a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening, there would be like 2 or 3 people. There'd be like a line, and you would talk about what's good and whatnot. So it's now.
Do they have Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead? Damn it! All right. Next quote: Dave Horwitz. Watched this on September 29, 2020, like full on lockdown. Gave it 1.5 stars. It says, every character in this mostly upsetting film has a silly nickname, but the moment that broke me was when someone refers to a man who has only been called Franchise the entire time by his real name, Francis Chiser. I did not get that. That is, what's his name from the Rob Zombie movies?
Not Shane Douglas. William Forsythe.
William Forsythe. As I said in the episode, surprisingly sympathetic William Forsythe. So the family man in this movie. And yeah, I thought the Franchise was a really cool nickname. I did not catch that they were just joining his name and last name.
The Franchise was a very cool nickname for professional wrestler Shane Douglas, who had a very good run in professional wrestling in the mid-90s, so much so that Triple H stole his entire act and took it to WWE and took it to higher ground. So who's to say, man? The Franchise character had already been established, so maybe Scott Rosenberg, closet ECW fan. Maybe, who's to say?
Maybe William Forsythe might be a wrestling fan. He strikes me as the kind of guy that would really get into it.
Well, and he strikes me as the kind of guy too that if he did get into it, it would have been ECW. The WCW and WF, those guys were pussies, but those ECW guys were real wrestlers.
He's in Rob Zombie movies. I mean, he's
not fucking around. He's hardcore.
Yeah. Next, Chill Guy 69. Watch this November. The class level lowers a little bit when you move from Rotten Tomatoes to Letterboxd. But he watched
Fisher's Letterboxd.
No, come on.
I kid. Well, he's a chill guy,
November 2nd, 2023. That's very recent. He gave it 1 star and says Doc Brown in the version of 1995 where they never get the almanac from Biff. In parentheses, very bad.
So I think we make a joke very close to that in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it is Christopher Lloyd. You see Christopher Lloyd in a movie, you instantly think Back to the Future, unless you are... Man, I don't even know who... I think it's like Star Wars, right? Like, I know there are people on this planet that are not familiar with the Back to the Future trilogy, just like there are some people that proudly will tell you they've never watched a Star Wars movie. Yeah. And... So for them, I guess when they watch Christopher Lloyd on screen, it's just an actor. They don't think Doc Brown.
Yeah, obviously as I become older, like if I had seen this movie when I was a kid, Angels in the Outfield was like a movie I watched a lot of times when I was little, so I'd probably associate him closer with that. But yeah, now that I'm like an adult that has lived in the world for more than 15 years, I associate Christopher Lloyd with being Doc Brown, excuse me. And I think we call out in the episode too that he is the one trying hardest to like separate himself from what people think of him.
Right.
I mean, he's got half a hand and works as a fucking booth technician in a porno theater, for Christ's sake. So, yeah, I could see if I'm picturing like a 14-year-old kid maybe who hadn't seen that many R-rated movies in his life, but like loved the Back to the Future franchise, being at a sleepover in 1997 or 1998, and the kid whose house he's at is like, "Oh, I got this movie my dad watches. It's an R-rated movie," and puts it in, and he sees Christopher Lloyd doing all this. He's like, I want to go home. Can I call my mom?
Hopefully, he goes home halfway through the movie after Christopher Lloyd's big Oscar speech, so he doesn't get to see what happens after.
Yes.
And you can pretend that Christopher Lloyd just rides off into the sunset, which is what I would have liked.
I mean, to be fair, spoilers, skip ahead 10 seconds. Christopher Lloyd probably has the most dignified death of any of the gentlemen in this.
I guess. Also,
he faces it head on. He says, "Make it quick."
Yeah. And I was gonna say, and then at the end, you get the Titanic dream afterlife, so everything is okay.
It's Christopher Lloyd reaching his hand out for Andy Garcia.
Yes. These two go together like a wink and a smile. First, Mooski. Watch this March 7th, 2024, give it 2 stars and says, "I don't care for Andy Garcia, wannabe Al Pacino. This movie wasn't for me." On the other hand, Stefu, watch this October 1st, 2023, also gave it 2 stars, says, "I think Andy Garcia has built his career on the fact that he looks vaguely like Robert De Niro." Which is it? Is he a Pacino light? Is he a
we talk
wish
about
Robert De Niro?
Old AG a lot in the episode. He was kind of doomed. We talk about he had done movies before Godfather 3, but he got an Academy Award nomination for it. And Godfather 3 is, in the Godfather franchise, looked at as like the fucking Rise of Skywalker of that. So it's his fault. And of course, when you're in The Godfather, what are people going to do? They're immediately going to compare you to Al Pacino and Robert De Niro.
Yep.
I don't think that's fair.
I can tell you, I have never looked at Andy Garcia and thought he kind of looks like Robert De Niro. And if I thought about the Pacino connection, is exactly what you just said, because they were in The Godfather together. Mm-hmm. But even then, I mean, I don't think... When I watched The Godfather 3, I thought of Joe Pesci. And not because they look physically similar, but because his character in Godfather 3 is just so loud and so brash and irresponsible that I thought of Tommy in Goodfellas.
Andy Garcia is very direct, and there's I guess the similarity with Pacino could be the pauses between sentences. You wait a minute, and then but then Friedman hella, and then and Pacino does the same thing, but you start up here, and then you wait, and so it's
my eyes see Oppenheimer.
My eyes see Oppenheimer. Andy Garcia delivering that line would not be the same. He would go and Oppenheimer. And that's how the award would have gone out. I mean, in our history of doing this, even though it was way before we got our groove, so to speak, movies like Smoking Aces and shit. You look at a guy who's in that. I'm a big City Island fan, and I think he's really good in that. I'm not here to tell you that Andy Garcia could have been, as far as like a dramatic actor goes, a Leo DiCaprio, or even as like an action actor. I'm not here to tell you he could have been like Keanu Reeves, but the big thing for him being Godfather 3, that's his whole thing was always going to be, he was going to be compared to De Niro and Pacino from that point, moving forward. And so whether that's fair or not, like we said, Godfather 3 is one of those funny movies that it is kind of castigated, but at the same time, it got a shit ton of Oscar nominations. Yep. And made coin and made a star out of Andy Garcia. And I guess it's fitting. The big comparisons we didn't speak about in the episode were De Niro and Pacino, and this is a movie that's riddled with comparisons to a different director, being Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino. So
funny you say that, Alex.
I
'Cause-
knew it was coming.
oh yeah, save it for the end. It's all over the Rotten Tomatoes quotes. It's also all over the Letterboxd quotes. We're gonna close with these two. Starting with Andrew, who watched this December 7, 2020, another lockdown watch, gave it 2 stars, said, "What if there was a fake Tarantino that was also a fake Coen Brothers? Every FX show from 2007 to 2015 is in its debt." I don't know about that last sentence, but before we get to it,
That's some a discredit and a bit of libel against Sons of Anarchy. I don't think that wanted to be Tarantino or Coen Brothers.
But also John McKenzie 88 gave it 2 stars and said, "Quentin Tarantino, you have blood on your hands, most likely literally." I don't see Tarantino as a dude that like throws down and gets down and dirty. I think that Tarantino probably
God, wouldn't that be
tires some.
awesome if he was like a fucking a well-achieved bare knuckle boxer, like, decorated. But yeah, Tarantino seems he's not fat like I am, and that's been the majority, like the Bobby Hill school of fighting, is that if you're kind of fat and funny, you can talk your way out of it. So I'm curious, like if Tarantino ever gets into like a disagreement in a bar or something, how he gets out of it. I mean, aside from he wouldn't be in that situation anymore, but back in 1995, if he was like, he had the the suitcase, the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. He's like, "Hey, do you want to see what's really in here? All right, let's call it truce."
So Quentin Tarantino could have
Brought up
directed Things to Do
no
in Denver.
less than 3 dozen times in the episode.
Yeah, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, and Quentin Tarantino is not available to direct your movie. That was the original title, and then they shortened it. A lot of Tarantino comparisons from critics, from fans.
From the actual state of Colorado website that
Yes.
we read out in the episode.
Inescapable given the time of the release, a gangster movie from the mid-90s released by Miramax Rated R with lots of potentially, not even potentially, 100% offensive dialogue, non-PC with an ensemble cast of names,
Quirky characters.
that talk a lot. Yeah, I mean that was a thing that happened throughout the 90s. It still happens in a way, throughout 2000s, but people don't. Now we don't call them Tarantino clones. Now we call them Guy Ritchie clones.
Yeah. Did we go into in the episode, like there's so few movies that change the world forever, and Pulp Fiction's one of them. For better or for worse, if you like that movie or not, like there's no denying how that just like that's one of those movies that came in and just it was like a gun being shot off that made everyone like perk up and go, okay, what the fuck? And it's crazy because like even Scream is one of those too, and that came out just 2 years later, and there was that concise period there that had a lot going on. But my Letterboxd review of this, I did say this is a movie that could really have only existed in 1995, and we talk about that in the episode in detail of like how it has the trappings of your cliche 90s action movie, but being like at the end of the blanket that's getting whipped after Pulp Fiction of like,
God, such a just disparaging visual. It's like
oh, well, whipped is an improper word. You know what I mean, though, when you make
your
your
movie
bed
is the lint that we get rid of once laundry is done.
No. What I'm trying to say is like when you snap your blanket to make it sharp on your bed, it's like at the end of the blanket where like the wave comes and crashes at the end of
Yes.
it. It's it was just riding the success of Pulp Fiction, and Miramax is involved, and we talk about the wine scenes and shit, and it's just there's parts of this movie you can tell distinctly someone was like, hey, make this more like Pulp Fiction.
Can we cast Michael Madsen here anywhere, please?
What's the soundtrack budget? Can we expand it?
Do you that song that opens the movie? We have the opening with the park with the kids, but then hard cut to Andy Garcia driving his convertible, and there's a song playing. I don't know the song, but
I don't remember it either. But I remember thinking like, my note I told you about, it was like, yep, this is the post Tarantino world. But also, when I was thinking about it, that's like the opening credits of The Sopranos. It's just, Andy Garcia driving around to like a kind of melancholic, but kind of hip song and whatnot. And it's who's to say that The Sopranos wasn't influenced by Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead?
That's true. That's true. It is. I mean, they're all mobsters. It's a shame that they probably don't name drop Jimmy the Saint the way that they name drop Scorsese or, I don't know, Jimmy Conway. But that's it, Alex. Those are the quotes.
Dune. I liked it.
Yes. Before we go to trivia, let's do the Josh Gad Minute. So many choices. So many actors that we can swap for Josh Gad in this movie.
Yes, but if we're to rein it in here, I think the options are limited as to what would be, I think, the best use of the Gad's abilities. And one that comes to mind is he has the Josh Charles role where he plays the boyfriend.
Okay.
That's very, lippy and fuck you, I know what I'm doing.
I'm from
Because,
LA.
yeah, because he could pull that off, don't you think?
Yes, definitely the attitude. He's got it. He can talk back to a fake policeman. He needs to kind of put on his stud wardrobe though, because Josh Charles is looking good. And
yeah, he'll need the hair slicked back and like maybe he's driving, so he doesn't need a blazer on, but he'd need like a button up or something, kind of flossy on.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I think that he could do it. If you want the Gad to really stretch his muscles, Walken was already in Pulp Fiction. So maybe removing Walken from the cast benefits
the Deer Hunter, for Christ's sake, by this point.
No, but what I'm saying is that when you put Christopher Walken in your movie, that's already giving you heavy Tarantino vibes. Then you invite more comparisons. So get Walken out of there, put Josh Gad in that chair, and let Josh Gad be the bad guy.
That's that's an undertaking. That's a world away from Olaf. But also the other character I was going to propose isn't much better in terms of like quality human beings, because I was going to say you could do with him a bit role, but it's one that requires like scumbaggery at a higher level. He could be the John that abuses Fairuza Balk.
Oh, so you get Andy Garcia to beat the shit out of him?
Yeah, so Andy Garcia goes to the board meeting or whatever that he's in and, chokes him with his tie and beats the shit out of him in front of all his coworkers. And, Josh Gad, you could see him, like, 5 o'clock shadow, the panic in his face of everything going on. I think you could really make that work.
All right. So Hollywood, it's up to you now. How do you want your Gad? Do you want your Gad as a kind of like an attractive cameo? You want him as a despicable cameo, or do you want him as the bad boss, the final boss in this Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead journey? He could do it, whichever role you throw at him. I think that he's capable of tackling it. But that was
the choice is yours.
Minute. Now, Alex, trivia time.
All right. Released in December of 95, $8 million budget. We cover in the episode a box office flop of large proportion, not even bringing in $600,000 in the return. James Caan was originally going to play the man with the plan, the Christopher Walken role, but he dropped out when he had to go to rehab.
Oh,
and
I thought you were gonna say he objected to the dialogue. I will not say
similarly, or not similarly, fittingly, excuse me. On that note, James Woods had reportedly had interest in the role, so he saw the script and he was like, "I get to say all that shit, hell yeah!"
Can I improvise? Can I expand on this?
James Caan, I can't. I can't. He's Buddy's dad. I can't.
Yeah, but he's Sonny. Before he
Sonny.
was,
he's Sonny. Yeah. But at this point in my life, I have too much warmth towards him to want to hear him say horrendous dialogue while in a wheelchair.
You don't want to see Jenny McCarthy feeding him?
No. So in the credits, Don Cheadle is credited as Don Cheadle, D-A-W-N Cheadle.
Like that's his actor name, or is that
like
that's his character name?
He's a cleaning product. No, that's what they put as his actor name. which is insane because he has a very bit role in this, and Don Cheadle being the actor that he is, we talk about this in the episode. It's like, holy shit, it's Don Cheadle, and this is not far away from Boogie Nights, where
Right?
he has one of the movie stealing scenes. Cameron Diaz lost the role of Dagny to Gabrielle Anwar. This would have been post Mask,
Yeah.
so that's kind of surprising,
I don't
guess.
think Cameron Diaz fits in this movie. As much as this movie kind of doesn't fit with itself at times, but I think the character of Dagny was perfectly cast, and maybe that's just because I'm not familiar with this actress, so it was just easy to take it as like, oh, well, that's who she is. If I saw Cameron Diaz in this role, I'll be like, that's Cameron Diaz, and it would just feel like she doesn't belong in this world. Kind of like when I was watching Gangs of New York, it's like that's Cameron Diaz.
Why? Scott Rosenberg created the distinctive slang-based vocabulary used by the characters in this movie by mixing Vietnam slang and biker slang and adding in some of his own diction. So kind of like Hunter S. Thompson shit of just hanging out with people and picking up on how they speak. I'm curious what his original, is it give it a name or put a name on it?
Oh God, give it a name. I think it's give it a name.
Yeah. There's a few, for those who haven't seen, there's a few lines that are used repeatedly in this that you're kind of like, am I supposed to know what that means? And I'm curious where those came from.
I mean, Jack Warden explains some of them. He's there as your Clippy. He shows up and it's like, this is what this means.
He's
we
the conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clippy. He's the tutorial guide in a video game that
Yes.
pops up. Production began on August 24th of 1994 and shot for 34 days over 25 interior and exteriors in and around the city of Denver, Colorado. Denver probably thought they had a winner on their hands here.
Finally, a movie that was going to represent the city of Denver.
And I guess something to end on here, because we pose questions about the screenplay in the episode. Scott Rosenberg wrote the script in 2 weeks. It was partly in reaction to the death of his father from cancer.
Oh, because of there's that through line of the people that are leaving messages for the people that survive them.
Yeah.
I guess that's how it started, and then he turned it into a gangster movie.
Yeah, and this is Scott Rosenberg's first feature film, his first feature writing credit, and I'm certainly not going to be one to discredit something like that, like your personal attachment to the story or whatnot. It is just kind of, I guess, an interesting tidbit, but
well, I mean, as stated in the episode and in other instances of Contrarians content, I like Scott Rosenberg as a writer, and I actually praise the dialogue on the episode. I like it. I think it has its own thing going. It's not just aping Tarantino. And I did pose a question, I think, at some point. I was like, is this real slang or did he come up with this slang? Because either way, it was very interesting. I was like, oh, these people have their very particular way of talking, and I buy it, and it seems consistent.
Yes.
So
you know what I'm going to say when I talk about slang people use and don't actually sound how real people talk. And the biggest difference is I don't believe that they believe that's how they talk, is Juno. Like, yeah. In this, these guys say shit that I'm like, wait, was I supposed to know what that means? Did I miss something? But I still believe they know what they're saying.
Right.
You know? And so it works. And yeah, of course, Scott Rosenberg, Beautiful Girls, former Contrarians coverage, but also Con Air, High Fidelity, Gone in 60 Seconds. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, which has been covered on here. Venom. So he's
getting that superhero money.
As I like to say, he's I don't know how much top ramen he's eating. You know what I mean? He's not dipping Vienna sausages in French's mustard or anything like that. So he's doing all right for himself. And a very interesting way to begin his career. And I think the consensus we reach in the episode is a very interesting movie, and one that's not outright bad. It's just
worth a watch, I think.
A product of its time.
Yeah. If you if you have that nostalgia for the mid 90s and that type of movie, it's going to go down a lot more easily. You're going to be able to forgive its flaws and appreciate the things that it does well, if you like that type of movie from back in the day. If you're a little younger, or if you grew up in the 90s hating what was going on at the time, then maybe skip this one and just listen to the episode anyway. Coming up next.
Listen to the episode regardless.
Yes, yeah, no matter what.
Jenny McCarthy's politics do not reflect those of the Contrarians.
Yes. Now, coming up next, Alex, I don't even know how to sell it because I don't know anything about the movie other than it's being assigned to us by a patron, but it's a movie Mad Heidi. That is our next endeavor. I think it's fresh.
87%.
There you go.
I tried to make a joke about this in the episode, and I'll do it again. This is not to be confused with Mad Heine, which will be WrestleMania Sunday when Bayley enters the ring. But Mad Heidi, a 2022 action comedy starring, I don't know if any of these folks I'm familiar with.
Well, there you go. Internet, do your thing. Just drive the people that know who or what Mad Heidi is, bring them to this channel and to our podcast so that we can all communicate. But that's coming up next. So watch Mad Heidi, watch Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, listen to the show, subscribe to the channel, do all the things, and we will see you again soon.